There's a city on our planet where 2 million people live in every square kilometer. This city is 182 times busier than New York City. It's not obvious, but it's true. We want to go to an area that has the densest population in the world. So go along with Dark Fact. Currently, the busiest place in the world is Harari slums area in Mumbai, India. The total area of this area is 2 square kilometers, but in this small place, about 700,000 people live. This means that the entire population of Alaska lives in an area of 2 kilometers. Life here means a gradual death. There's no comfort and tranquility. A variety of diseases are prevalent in this area. Addiction is raging, and rape and murder and killing are everyday occurrences. This is hell. But residents of the area should be glad they are not residents of the Kowloon Walled City. This terrifying city was the most densely populated area in the world until 1993. It was called the City of Darkness or Anarchy. Before we enter the city, you should know that it is located inside the city of Hong Kong, a city with one of the largest economies in the world. New York is a crowded city, and there are 10,000 people living in every square kilometer of the city. In Harari, Mumbai, 277,000 people live per square kilometer, 26 times denser than New York. The walled city of Kowloon, Hong Kong, had only 50,000 inhabitants, but the 50,000 live in an area of 4 football fields. If we take into account the ratio of the resident population to the area, that is, the density of the city was 1,900,000 people per square kilometer. It's 182 times busier here than New York. If all 8 billion of the world's population lived at this density, all of the Earth's population would fit inside the city of Hong Kong. Just look at the density of this city to get your heart rate up. Now let's go inside this condensation and see what's going on inside it. There was no law in the area mandating pharma. The law of this city was just force. The meat consumed by restaurants was just dog meat. The health score in this city was less than 0. No health law made sense here. Cockroaches and rats and many other vermin lived comfortably inside the restaurant. It cannot be set straight. The width of the alleys in this area didn't exceed 1.5 meters. Passing through these alleys, of course, was not easily possible, because the sewage of the higher floors flowed freely into the alley. That's why anyone who wanted to walk through these alleys had to get an umbrella over their head. The height of the building had risen so high that the light would not reach the floor of the alleys, and it was always dark. The Hong Kong government wasn't providing any services to the area. No police would enter, nor government agents. A city of anarchy literally. Initially, this part of the city had only a few hundred inhabitants, but the lack of Chinese and British attention to the area caused the population of Kowloon Walled City to reach such an extent. In this city, if you had the force, you could claim to be a dentist, or you could have surgery. You could choose any job for yourself because there was no law. Some influential people would buy some dental supplies and tell everyone they were dentists, so making a lot of money. Dog roast was the most common meal of this hell. But where was the city's waste going? No one was dumping the city's garbage. That's why sometimes walking through the alleys, in addition to the sewers, you might suddenly find garbage on your head. For this reason, in this city, the existence of umbrellas was necessary for life. Living in this lousy. The rich, cultured people of the city didn't throw garbage into the alleys. If they could force their arms, they would throw garbage on the roofs of the buildings facing them. Residents of the buildings across the street were also dumping their rubbish on the roof of the building. Gradually, the Hong Kong criminals realized that it was a safe place and the police were not approaching. That's why all of a sudden this area of thugs and smugglers and thugs and horrible brothels, cats of dog meat were overflowing. Any non-virtual materials you wanted could be found in this area. I emphasize, any non-virtual materials. The inhabitants of this terrible area were not ordinary people. Every person who lived there must have had an addiction. As we said, the police wouldn't enter here, but sometimes they were forced to enter. For example, when it came to the police, they had killed 15 people inside the area. That's why the police had to come in. But not regular police, but riot police with all their anti-chemical equipment and masks. They didn't even want to breathe the air here. In this city, you could rent a room at a reasonable price. Of course, super small rooms. The monthly rent of a 3.5 square meter room was $5 US. Of course, it didn't have any possibilities. It had no bathroom or toilet. Many of these rooms didn't even have electricity. A normal person is like that in front of 3.5 square meters. There was only as much room as a mattress. There were thousands of units of these rooms full of tenants. Unprincipled buildings that were built up to 14 stories. Of course, if there were no obstacles, the inhabitants of the area would have wanted to increase the classes again. But the main obstacle was that Hong Kong airport was located half a kilometer from this hell and there was no possibility of raising floors at all. Because when the plane was about to land at this airport, it would have passed a few kilometers from these buildings. Luckily, they left a blank in the middle of town where the townspeople could sometimes see the sunshine too, because the whole town was in absolute darkness. Every few minutes, a plane would pass over the city and its sound would shake all the buildings. Truly, it was a great and classy city. What happened to the city? What happened to the inhabitants of the city? What did Britain and China do to the city? Why did the Chinese and British government decide to do such a strange thing? Join us to answer all of these questions in the future. Before we move on to the story of this hellish city, I want you to like and comment on this video and subscribe to the Dark Fact channel to support us. At first, it was a homeless people's camp, but gradually and over time it got bigger and its control was taken off the hands of the government. When we look at the story of the city, we see that it really was a torturous hell. They say hell is full of fire, but it was worse than fire. The city's reputation went global. That's why every tourist who goes to Hong Kong wants to come here and see it. Tourists wanted to see where the hell they say exists on Earth. There were always a few tourists watching the city from afar. Finally, in 1993, the Chinese and British government came to their attention and said why there had been such a cancerous tumor on the outskirts of Hong Kong. Then they decided to raise the area and they did the same. Today, that hell has become a paradise. It has become a big park. But fortunately, there are many photos of the disaster and it is possible to watch this lawless city. Of course, if you want to visualize this city well, you have to travel to Japan. The Japanese built a replica of a part of the city in Kawasaki. When you walk into this replica, you will know what's going on in that city. Even though we know it's a replica, we still get heartbreak from the intensity of its density. If they gave you $1 million, would you be willing to live in the city for 3 years? Tell me in the comments.